What it do, Cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, and it's time for Raw review as well as Hater Outdoors. You know what I'm saying? I was watching Raw, and I couldn't believe it. I actually enjoyed quite a lot of what I saw today. Now, as usual, there was obviously a lot of bad things as well, you know? So we're not going to just sit here and pretend it was a great episode, but it was definitely passable. So let's go through everything. I'm pretty sure we're going to give it probably a 5, maybe even higher. But let's go through it while it's still fresh in your boy's dome piece. You know what I'm saying? Now, we've got the show opening up with a little tribute picture of Sid Vicious, who passed away, I think, today, maybe yesterday, right? Just in a moment here, we're going to talk a bit more about Sid Vicious because they did another package later on. But, this was par for the course. Of course, you expect that to happen. Next up, Judgment Day comes out. They basically cut a Judgment Day promo. I don't know why any one of these people are allowed to talk on the mic. The only person that should talk on the mic is Dominic, right? JD sucks. Carlito said, that's cool. And then that's it. And Finn Balor spoke in like half English with a deep Irish accent. Nobody understood. He was not comfortable talking on the mic. Liv Morgan, same thing. There's no need. You have Dominic. He's good on the mic. Let him do it because that's going to solve two problems. One, it's going to get Dominic better and better on the mic. Obviously, out of everyone in this faction, the person that's more likely to get money for the company is Dominic. JD McDonough, after the Judgment Day is over, he's over too. You know what I'm saying? Carlito, same thing. Finn Balor, same thing. Liv Morgan's going to stick around, but she's never going to be one of the main girls. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see her winning the title at WrestleMania, right? She might defend it at WrestleMania, but who cares? That means nothing, you know? So there you have it. With that being said, Rey Mysterio comes out, and this actually made sense, right? This set up like a 4-on-4 tag match, and, Rey Mysterio, at the end of the day, is still Dominic's father, right? So him coming out and saying, Dominic, you suck, makes sense, right? There's an ongoing storyline between the two, but more importantly, he's the father, right? So this made more sense than, let's say, American Made came out, right? If they came out, that would just be weird. So this was a good little setup, right? We have an 8-man tag match. The problem is that everyone here is a jobber. The match itself is not complete garbage, right? But the way it ended was basically just ended with Liv Morgan screwing Rey Mysterio, and then Dominic doing a La Magistral, which Corey Graves, Cucky Graves, motherfuckers, he correctly called it. I didn't like the finish because it's like, how about just have Dominic, just give him a new finisher? Like, it can be like an X Factor or something. I don't know. Something simple or even a DDT, right? Just like a move that he can use to end matches without having to do a frog splash, right? But whatever. He did the La Magistral. Maybe that's the move, right? After this, of course, what's it called? The Terror Twins. That's their name, right? They come out and they start beating up everybody, right? It is what it is. Like, this is just, a throwaway segment to push forward this match. But there are worse ways to do it, right? For example, if this was only just like a promo and the Terror Twins came out, that would have been much worse. So even though this whole entire segment, considering the entrances and the post-match beatdown and the match itself, it took like 30 minutes maybe. It was a well-spent 30 minutes. You could do much worse, right? Then they have an interview with The Miz, who basically is going to be in one of the 2 qualifying matches for the Intercontinental title. They said it was a tournament, and I guess technically it is, but basically there's like 4 qualifying triple threats, and it's going to be a fatal 4-way match to determine the number 1 contender. I don't know where they're going with this. I would have liked to see like a multi-man match just to establish Braun Breaker. That's probably what's going to end up happening. There's going to be some screwy finish to the 4-way match, and they're going to set up another triple threat or maybe another 4-way or maybe a 5-way. I don't know, right? That's the way I see it happening. But nevertheless, that's going to happen. They show Bronson Reed coming up, Damage Control come out, and we go to break, right? After this, even though Damage Control is in the ring, right, nobody cares, so we have like a backstage segment, right? It was an awkward interaction and an awkward exchange between Cucky Kingston and Xavier Woods, right? Basically, Xavier Woods is still pissed, right? But because he's a pussy, he's all passive-aggressive about it. He's like, yeah, right? But we find out from this segment that both Kofi and Xavier are in one of the triple threat matches. I would have booked this differently if it were up to me, but what are you going to do, right? I'll tell you how I would book it later. Then Pure Fusion Collective, or as I like to call them, the Pure Jobber Collective, come out, and they're going to be wrestling Damage Control. Nobody cares at all. Damage Control wins. Io Sky does a moonsault to the outside, simultaneously to Kairi Sane doing the insane elbow from the same turnbuckle. I thought that was a little bit clever, but beyond that, I don't care. The Pure Jobber Collective is a complete waste of everybody's time. Like, they're already jobbers. They debuted like 3 weeks ago, and they're already losing. It's like, what's the point of them? You know, they're never going to have any great success. Somewhere in the middle of the circle jerk, we also get a promo from the women's tag team champions. Like, Alba Fire is okay, and the other one with the big ass is just annoying. Like, I don't know what it is about her. Maybe it's the way she delivers her promos. She just annoys me greatly, you know what I mean? And I don't want to see her deliver any promos, but as usual, the hater doesn't get what he wants. Then we get another VHS promo of Bo Dallas. This was one of the worst things I've heard in my life. Basically, Bo Dallas says that Chad Gable is a false prophet because he's a bad stable leader. That's entirely what the feud is based upon. Apparently, it turns out, it wasn't a random attack, but, Bo Dallas is going after Chad Gable because he's not a good stable leader, right? Which is almost comically bad, right? To the point where it's hilarious, right? It's basically, Bo Dallas is like, I don't like how you lead the stable, so I'm going to beat you up. You know, and he's like, we've given you several chances. Not really. This whole thing started with him attacking Chad Gable, right? Presumably because he was mistreating Otis and Tozawa. Like, what the hell? Like, this doesn't even make any sense, right? You know, there's no need to have a bullshit story connected to this, right? This was not necessary when the Wyatt Six were presented as heels. But now, clearly in an attempt to save the already failed gimmick of the Wyatt Six, WWE has shifted them to faces. This is going to lead to nothing. The Wyatt Six, as far as I'm concerned, are already dead in the water. But nevertheless, we have to tolerate this boring-ass VHS promo. Next, Drew McIntyre is, shown walking backstage. He's going to show up eventually. You know what I'm saying? Whatever, it is what it is. Then we've got Drew McIntyre coming out after the commercial break, and he basically buries CM Punk with facts. This was pretty great, if I do say so myself. Basically, he says CM Punk's going to come out here and talk about CM Punk, which he's 100% right. And he pretty much runs down all the CM Punk isms, right? He's like, CM Punk is going to say how well WWE is doing, but he didn't contribute to this. Drew McIntyre is 100% right. CM Punk's been gone for 8 years, and now he's like, wrestling's great. Like, shut the fuck up, you know what I mean? And then Drew McIntyre says, and he's going to talk about how some little kid flew from the other side of the world to meet his hero, CM Punk. And the underpinnings of this are, why the fuck do we care if someone flew to meet CM Punk? That's just why I do it. I do it for the people. Every face just does it for the people, right? Which is why heels, at least in the present, are far more compelling, right? Like, think about what made Stone Cold and The Rock, like, extremely popular. You know, arguably the two most popular wrestlers of all time. I don't think it's hard to even argue that, right? They're the number 1 and 2. I would say The Rock is a little bit better, but most people would say Stone Cold. He was like the one that came out on top of their feuds. So what made them so compelling is that they're faces. Like, they're fundamentally good guys, right? Like, Stone Cold would come out there and save people. You know what I mean? When he was a face. And The Rock would do the same. But they didn't behave like traditional faces. Like, Stone Cold never said, I do it for the people. The Rock would say that, but he would do it in this, like, confident manner, right? While he was bullying other people, like Michael Cole and the cameraman and all his other opponents, right? He would just go out there and he would, like, basically be himself. He was a jerk. Like, if The Rock was a real person, he'd be a huge asshole, right? But because he's a face, right, all of that goes away because he saves people at the end of the day. So you just know that he's a face because he does good things and doesn't cheat. But he's not like, I love the people, I do it for you. He never said that. He said, The Rock basically did it for himself, and the people just follow suit. That was kind of the underpinnings. But CM Punk is like, I do it for little Jimmy, who flew across the world to see me. And that's what Drew McIntyre is pointing out. This is really stupid. Basically, Drew McIntyre says, I'm going to beat up CM Punk. CM Punk comes out. They have a mini brawl, and that's it, I mean, it is what it is. I know CM Punk's never going to wrestle on Raw at this rate. And Drew McIntyre also hasn't wrestled on Raw in like 6 weeks, as far as I can tell. But it is what it is. I think the last time he wrestled was when he lost that, like, number 1 contenders match to Jey Uso, But nevertheless, this is just how they've set up the programming. We can't wait for this feud to end mercifully. CM Punk's obviously going to win and take his bracelet back. You know, Drew McIntyre also says that the bracelet is a 50-cent piece of shit, basically, right? In other words, it seems like Drew McIntyre has been watching some hater videos because this sounded like a hater promo, so therefore, I really enjoyed this, you know what I mean? Then we've got main event Jey Uso basically doing his little thing, which is kind of unique, you know, where he talks to the fans through the camera and then he makes his entrance, right? The entrance is fire as usual, but it's getting played out, right? At the end of the day, the match is Jey Uso versus Karrion Cuck and Kofi Kingston for one of the coveted spots in the Intercontinental title #1 contenders match, right? Which I guess makes sense because that's why we have all these jobbers. You know, somewhere down the line, wrestlers that were main eventers like Kofi Kingston are now jobbers, right? Like, they're all of a sudden, it's like they're not good anymore. Like, nobody explained why. They're just not good anymore. You know what I mean? Kofi Kingston just doesn't know how to wrestle anymore. Randy Orton doesn't know how to wrestle anymore, so he loses to, you know, Logan Paul, despite the fact that they keep hammering on us, right, that Randy Orton is in the best shape of his life, mentally and physically, right? They keep saying that everyone's in their prime, you know, which I understand you have to do. It's like that one Royal Rumble where the last two guys were Taker and HBK, and JBL's like, ha ha, we got two of the greats in their prime, Maggle, right? And it's like, you know, they're not in their primes, but JBL saying that puts forward the notion that these are legit wrestlers, right? That these are like the two guys. They are the two top guys in this company, you know? But you can't do that with Randy Orton when he's feuding for the U.S. title. You know, I don't care that he looks better than he always has and that he's 290 pounds or whatever lie they want to tell us, right? 25-year-old Orton, who was 230 pounds, was like feuding with Undertaker and beating Benoit and being the champion and then feuding with Triple H. Like 44-year-old Randy Orton, who isn't any of those things, is out there feuding with like Gunther, you know what I mean? So it doesn't feel like it makes sense, right? All of a sudden, all of these legendary guys, Kofi Kingston, The Miz, Orton, they're just jobbers now, right? And it's like there's no other explanation, you know? But that Gunther and friends are better, but they're not better, so none of it makes sense. Anyways, the match goes on for far too long as far as I'm concerned, and long story short, as expected, Karrion Kross takes the pin, and Jey Uso obviously wins, right? Jey Uso's the only one in this match who is positioned as anything less, well, he's kind of a jobber too, but he's like way less of a jobber than Kofi Kingston and Karrion Kross, who haven't been on pay-per-view. Like, Kofi Kingston hasn't been on pay-per-view in like years in a singles match, and Karrion Kross has never been on pay-per-view except for WrestleMania in like a 19-person situation. So with all that being said, you know, what we expected happened, right? During this match, I couldn't help but think, I knew all along that Karrion Kross was going to be a massive jobber, right? Every time I see this guy, I'm like, I can't believe anybody like was tricked because there's no other explanation. You know what I mean? And, you know, I don't want to insult anybody that might be listening to this and is still a Karrion Kross fan, but you were basically duped. Like you were essentially manipulated into thinking this guy was good because I see him and I'm like, I see absolutely nothing good here. And now everybody agrees with me. But in the past, I was the first one to say it. The first one probably in the entire wrestling community worldwide. And everyone was like, you're wrong, hater. This guy's going to be a massive star. Well, here he is losing to Jey Uso. Imagine this. When Karrion Kross debuted with his shitty, overproduced entrance, and I said he sucked, did anybody think during that time that at one point this guy wouldn't even be on TV? And if he were on TV, he'd be taking the pin in a match that involved Kofi Kingston, and he'd get pinned by Jey Uso, who is now getting a singles push. Nobody could have predicted that except for your boy. So that went down the way it should have gone down, and, you know, nobody was surprised. Orton comes out and cuts a Randy Orton promo. This was actually pretty good because Randy Orton does something that a lot of people don't do. He puts over the title, right? He basically starts by saying that the World Heavyweight title, not this one, but the real one, obviously, was the first title that he held, right? And as a result, he was also the last guy to hold the title, right? Because he merged it with the WWE title when I think he beat Cena. Like, he was like the World Heavyweight Champion. Cena was the WWE Champion, and Randy Orton won. I think that's what happened. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. But basically, he's like, and when the title was brought back, I was gone. So the problem with this is, like, when he came back, the title was still a thing, and I believe Rollins had it, and he didn't seem to give a shit about that. Instead of going after the title that apparently he cares about so much, he decided to go after the U.S. title, you know, which is something that's like below Randy Orton. But whatever, right? The point is, he says, I'm going to beat Gunther. Now, in the middle of the circle jerk, we also see like a little clip. They tried to edit it as well as they could to make it seem not as flagrant as it was. But basically, when Gunther pinned Orton, and Orton's shoulder was clearly off the ground. And then right after this, they cut to Gunther saying like, I have restored honor. What are you talking about? It's like you can't even pin the guy. You know, like this idea that Gunther is like this mat technician and this great wrestler is undercut by the fact that he's not. You know what I mean? It's just like that one time when everyone was like, oh, Kairi Sane is an amazing wrestler. She's top 5, including men, right? And she doesn't even know how to like tag someone in. You know, like think about it. What happened with Karrion Kross is happening again. Some people are just easily convinced. They're easily convinced that what they're seeing is not what they're seeing, right? Because you see that Gunther sucks. You see that Kairi Sane sucks, but then someone with more influence, probably more charm and charisma than you, says, oh, no, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. These guys are actually great. Ignore what you're seeing. Ignore what you feel. Believe me instead, right? That's the only thing that's happening with respect to any of these things, including Jacob Fatu. But anyways, let's move on, cucks. With that being said, like Gunther, you know, he's already in Europe. Michael Cole makes sure to tell us that, and it's basically like he doesn't give a shit, you know what I mean? Then we've got Pete Dunne getting ready, you know what I mean? They do a stupid tail of the tape between Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, which is up later tonight, and that's kind of silly, but just to show that they're big dudes, basically, right? Next up, we have the actual match. Braun Strowman versus Big Bronson Reed. Now, I thought to myself that the only correct way to book this match would be to have Bronson Reed essentially do a glorified squash on Braun Strowman. And while that didn't happen exactly how I thought it would, it did still happen, right? Long story short, the match becomes silly. It's his 50-50 match. Bronson Reed is becoming one of my favorite wrestlers on Raw. Because this guy, there was a point where he did like a tope suicida, a suicide dive, right? And it was very impressive. Not because he's big and fat, but because he did it while running very slowly. And it just kind of added this weight to it. But whatever. A lot of people do that. Samoa Joe does it better. It's not that big of a deal. Despite this, the match pretty much devolves, becomes a no contest, and they start going to the back, right? There's a stupid spot where basically there's a curtain. Bronson Reed goes past the curtain, picks up a trash can, and he just waits for the idiot, Braun Strowman, who's been presented as being like, basically like maybe 1 IQ point above profoundly retarded during his entire run. Braun Strowman just walks there, he gets hit with a trash can. The brawl continues. There's 3 security guards trying to stop it, and Braun Strowman. It's not my fault, motherfucks. We got Braun Breaker, Braun Strowman, Bronson Reed. Does everyone have to have the prefix Braun in their name? Fuck out of here. But anyways, these 3 jobbers, security guards, right, come up, and then basically Braun Strowman just destroys them. He even takes the time to chokeslam one of them through a table. Completely unnecessary, right? And then after doing this, he turns around and walks towards Bronson Reed, who just punches him in the face. This leads to a brawl further in the outside in like a parking lot type area. There's a spot where basically Strowman does the little tackle, like the little, the choo-choo thing, but he does it to Bronson Reed, and Bronson Reed basically like flies off of the hood of a car, right? He pushes him into the hood of a car, but then he just continues to slide. And it's a big dude, right? And he hits the concrete. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that must have hurt like hell. He's a big motherfucker basically being, jumping backwards at least, back first onto concrete. There was no protection there. This leads to them climbing up a little, structure of boxes that they made. And basically Bronson Reed hits Braun Strowman with what appears to be a pipe. Braun Strowman then falls on top of a car, and he's ready to get tsunami'd. Now, I thought he was going to jump from the boxes, but Bronson Reed climbs to the little fence area, right? Which I thought was an extra step that it just made it seem more real, right? Because the boxes were obviously set up there so he could climb up. But he climbs to the little fence area, which is an organic element of the arena, right? This is what I like to see. I like to see things that make sense. And then he does a tsunami from this on top of Braun Strowman, who was on top of a car, crushing the car a little bit and shattering the windows. This was fucking awesome. This is what wrestling is supposed to be. Crazy ass shit that you're not going to see every week, but that once in a while you see and you're like, this is tight, right? After the break, we're still on the scene. Braun Strowman is all like hurt. And he's like, oh, I can't feel my fingers. And he's just a shit actor. He's like, I can't feel my fingers. And I'm like, I'm supposed to feel bad about him. Why should I? What about the security guards that he's chokeslammed through the table, right? In my opinion, Bronson Reed is the good guy in this entire run, right? Basically, that idiot Adam Pearce comes up like after the fact, after the splash, he's just waiting over there. He's like, get medical, get an ambulance. And it's like, he just doesn't do anything. Like, Adam Pearce in real life would have been fired 3 years ago. But for some reason, even though he has no control over anything, he just stays there. He just keeps his job. Like, his staff has just got destroyed by Braun Strowman. He didn't care about them and medical, right? Then Braun Strowman got destroyed by Bronson Reed, who's been doing this for weeks. And Adam Pearce, the retard, doesn't know what to do, right? In addition, they had like a long camera shot. And the long camera shot captured a lot of the other cameramen that were hanging out there, right? Who didn't react at all, right? Because they don't even know they're on camera, right? So when Bronson Reed does this amazing move, this amazing spot, first of all, we see 3 cameramen from the long shot, right? And this is a small gripe, but I think it just shows that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. We see 3 cameramen just like filming this thing, right? Doing their jobs. And then the cameramen don't even react. Like, you just saw something amazing. You just saw someone basically get murdered, right? And they just stand there just doing their jobs, right? Because presumably they didn't know they were going to be on camera, right? It's kind of like the opposite of the AEW referee Aubrey Edwards, who she goes over the top. But I never understood why referees don't react to crazy shit. You know, like, okay, not like Stone Cold does the stunner, because that's par for the course. But like, I don't know, if someone comes and hits someone with a chair, like, the referee should react. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's not just the referee. It's anybody there who is watching, right? Michael Cole, when crazy shit happens, like this, Michael Cole's like, oh my God, he's selling it, right? Because he's the announcer, but he's also someone that's viewing this. So him emoting signifies to the crowd that something crazy happened, if that weren't obvious enough. Anyways, whatever, it is what it is. This was pretty sick, but it could have been done better. Next up, we have a pretty decent match. It's the other Intercontinental title eliminator match, right? Basically, we have Pete Dunne, The Miz, and Xavier Woods. So I'm thinking, easy win for The Miz. Xavier Woods is never going to be anything, and Pete Dunne fucking sucks, right? But once again, we are plagued by the curse of the successful wrestler. Miz, who is a 2-time world champion and 8-time Intercontinental champion, he can't even beat Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne, who just gets his ass kicked regularly. You know what I mean? Pete Dunne, who he's been on a streak now, but he just lost to Sheamus. So I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? The Miz needs more, and The Miz deserves more. The match otherwise was pretty good. The Miz definitely stood out. Basically, Miz takes the pin after a bitter end, and that's how it works, right? Then we'd go to a Braun Breaker interview backstage, which was simple but effective. Basically, he says he doesn't give a rat's ass, and he's going to beat up anybody, right? Then he talks about how Jey Uso's family has never been able to beat up anybody in their family, right? Which is fucking true. Let's be real. Oh, Haku would destroy Scott Steiner. No, he wouldn't. Scott Steiner would eat Haku in 2 seconds. And he would eat The Rock in 2 seconds. And he would eat Roman Reigns in 2 seconds. And he would eat every other Samoan and Tongan in the Anoa'i family in 2 seconds, right? There's different levels to this, and Scott Steiner is one of those motherfuckers. He's one of those legit badasses, you know what I'm saying? Not like a make-believe one. He's like a real deal. You don't need stories about Scott Steiner. You can just look at him and you can tell, right? That, plus he was like a very accomplished wrestler, and he was crazy athletic. So, you know, there it is, motherfuckers. Then we show like a promo from Chad Gable, an American made, and basically this promo was better than Bo Dallas's promo. In this promo, Chad Gable says, I ain't afraid of you, and I'm going to show you that Chad Gable is American made. I really enjoyed this. Then we got another promo from the Terror Twins. Rhea Ripley speaks in Spanish. The whole thing was really stupid. Then we've got essentially a eulogy to Psycho Sid. You know, I thought this was a very beautiful little segment. Michael Cole says a few words, and then they show the segment highlighting not only the freakish nature of Psycho Sid, but how apparently he was a really good guy and a family man and all that beautiful stuff. Psycho Sid, and I will do my little eulogy on him right now in 30 seconds. I remember when Psycho Sid became WCW champion when I was starting to watch, basically, right? Like around the year 99, 2000, I don't remember, 2001 maybe, right? And he was like one of the last big names that became champion and was believable, right? Because at this point, I mean, you know, like, I can't say that Jeff Jarrett is not believable because he's not a tiny guy, and Booker T is certainly believable, but Psycho Sid just stands head and shoulders above both of them, right? Psycho Sid was Brock Lesnar before there was Brock Lesnar, and in my personal opinion, he was far more intimidating and had a much better physique than even Brock Lesnar, which is saying a lot. Psycho Sid, in my opinion, stood out big time, a big motherfucker, like 6'9", right? Power bomb finish, which hits differently when you're 6'9", right? It just hits differently because you're like another 5-6 inches higher, right? He just was very believable. And to lastly give credit to Sid Vicious, there was an interview of his that I stumbled upon once in a compilation, and he's talking about how he had a dark match with Dean Malenko, and Dean Malenko goes to him. It was a 2-on-1 handicap match, and Dean Malenko says, you know, I do a pretty good drop toe hold. And Psycho Sid says, I'm the champion. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to come in. I'm going to boot you in the face. You're going to tag in your partner. I'm going to boot him in the face. I'm going to hit my finish on both of you and pin you with my foot, right? Because it needs to be believable. So Sid Vicious understood this, and there's nothing that Dean Malenko can say to him because Sid Vicious could, if he wanted to, do that shit for real in real life and just destroy Dean Malenko. So rest in peace, Sid Vicious. I was always entertained by him, and it was good to see that he's also a great guy in real life. I really, really enjoyed the tribute that he did to him. It was short but sweet and very, very appropriate, in my opinion. Cuckolds. Next up, what do we have? I believe after this, we finally got to the main event. We get Chad Gable versus Uncle Howdy. This match was just not good, right? It just was not good. The match went on for far too long, and just like I predicted earlier today, Uncle Howdy was presented as a 50-50 guy with Chad Gable, right? He barely eked out a win. Everyone that should have been involved, that should have not been involved, I should say, was involved. American Made and the Wyatt Six. I don't know why they did this. They should have just had the match end 3 minutes earlier and just have Uncle Howdy win, right? I don't know what kind of lifts Uncle Howdy was wearing, but he looked like 5-6 inches taller than Chad Gable. Maybe it's the mask too. Beyond that, Bo Dallas can certainly go, right? Like, Bo Dallas is a pretty good jobber in the sense that, like, if you need someone to throw around, Bo Dallas works perfectly as someone to be thrown around. But he's just not believable looking, right? He's not muscular enough. He just seems like a regular dude. You know, he's maybe like 6'1", 6'2", maybe 6 foot even. And basically, you know, that's it. He's just like a regular guy who's 6 foot. And it's just not believable. Like, I mean, it's believable that he can beat up Chad Gable, but like, what is he going to do? You know what I mean? Like, it's not believable that he can beat up like Lashley. That's why probably they got rid of Lashley up in this bitch, but you know what I'm saying, right? Beyond this, this almost felt like the first but also final match of Uncle Howdy because this is not going anywhere, you know? Eventually, I do feel like Bo Dallas, who in my opinion has gotten more chances than any wrestler in the history of wrestling to get over, I do believe that he's going to get one more chance after this to become just Bo Dallas one more time, right? Because this is not going to work out, you know? Everybody else is getting released, you know? And it's like, and that's the thing that I wanted to kind of double back on here. Like, a lot of people don't really see it, but it's like, think about what do these people have in common? Eric Rowan, Nikki Cross, fucking Joe Gacy, and Dexter Lumis, and even Bo Dallas, right? They're people that never achieved anything of note in wrestling. They never did anything good. Like, not one thing, you know what I mean? So they put them all together. What do you think is going to happen? You think this is going to be the one thing that saves their careers? Maybe, hopefully, because I don't want to see them lose their jobs. But I believe that more likely than not, this is the swan song for all these careers. Unlike Bo Dallas, who might get a nepotism second chance, and by second I mean 7th or 8th chance, I don't see the same thing happening for Eric Rowan, who has been released multiple times, Dexter Lumis, who has been released in the past, Nikki Cross, who has been a jobber her entire career, and of course, Joe Gacy, who has amounted to absolutely nothing. You know, what's going to happen here is all these people are going to be out the door within 2 years. You know what I mean? But maybe within those 2 years, they can provide something entertaining for the viewers. This was not that, because I was not entertained. But I will give this Raw a 6 out of 10. Because here's why, right? Despite the main event falling short and being forced to watch a boring-ass women's tag team match that did nothing, the rest of the card was relatively solid. You know, some of the outcomes weren't what I wanted. Like, I would have liked to see The Miz win. But I don't care about outcomes, right? I care about, like, if you're telling a story, maybe Pete Dunne is a better choice for Intercontinental Champion than The Miz. At the end of the day, I know The Miz is not winning it, because when he does, it's going to be a huge deal, because that's going to be a record-breaking reign. He's going to get one more, and he's going to pass both the record of most reigns with the IC title as well as cumulative days. He's going to pass that reign too. I believe. I think he has like 800 something days. So, and I think Jericho's number 1 with like, a few more days. So that's something that Miz deserves. That's a pretty big accolade in the context of the Intercontinental title. Like, it's one thing to be like, it's basically like, if you're not John Cena or Ric Flair, then the next best thing is to be like the best Intercontinental champion, right? So, it is what it is. Miz deserves more, but he's going to get it, but he's not going to get it now, because that's going to be a big storyline. So, but beyond that, like the Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed segment, even though it was clunky and stupid in many ways, the spot itself was just fucking awesome. You know what I mean? And it makes me want to see more Bronson Reed. So that being said, this has been a long-ass review, but a lot of things happened. And more importantly, a lot of noteworthy things happened. So that's why I took a moment to, be thorough about this. Likewise, once again, shout out to Sid Vicious for entertaining all of us. This is a guy that, was a star, a bona fide star, at a time when bona fide stars were the norm. And he's a guy that if you were around today, there's no question that he would be the WWE champion. It's not even close. I mean, he was the WWE champion back in the day, but right now it's not even close, right? It's like he would be the most believable guy in the roster by far. Like he's the kind of guy that would believably have a chance against Braun Strowman in real life, and who I think would beat up everybody else in the WWE, including like Omos and Bronson Reed and everybody else in a real fight. Like, I don't think anybody else would have a chance except for Braun Strowman. So rest in peace. Thanks a lot for the entertainment, Sid. I'll never forget his title run. And, shout out to him, motherfucks. Have a good night, and the hater will see you all tomorrow.